And so then I was starting to research about the Bilderbergers and the New World Order, and then I was starting to fit it into Bible prophecy and see how all the strife is about to take place on this earth and about how these elites are going to take over. And then I watched a couple years later, I came across a guy by the name of Walter Weith. And I watched some of his videos. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. And he puts it in such a biblical perspective. And then I learned about the Jesuits. And I started looking like, wow, the Jesuits are the ones that are actually pulling the strings. They're the ones that are behind the scenes pulling the strings. And so now I'm looking, who's a Jesuit? Is this person a Jesuit? Is that person a Jesuit? It's like, what are the Jesuits doing? And then I'm looking at the news and the headlines, and I'm like, man, this guy's from Mason or George Washington University or whatever it is. That's a Jesuit college. That guy's a Jesuit. They're pulling the strings. And so I'm looking, I'm looking at all the headlines, and that became my focus. I would research, I would read, I would, listen to these videos about interpreting Bible prophecy and what's happening, the current events in the light of these things. And I was obsessed. But the more that I learned, the more I thought I was awake. The more that I thought my eyes were open, because now I know about, Bohemian Grove and what the elites are doing in secret, what the Jesuits are up to, and how they've infiltrated the church. And I thought that's what made me awake. But the more I studied the Jesuits and what they're doing, or this conspiracy or that conspiracy, I noticed that I began to sink. You ever experienced that? I wonder why that is. It's because we take our eyes off Jesus and start focusing on the movements of the wind. Today we have the coronavirus, as some call it, the plandemic. We have the BLM, Black Lives Matter. And we can get into it and focus and research all about the Black Lives Matter and how it's a Marxist organization and it's going to bring socialism. And we can be so focused on the coronavirus and how they're using that to bring in or usher the mark of the beast or forced vaccinations or the Marxism, socialism that's coming in to the world. There's riots, and we can look at, the Jesuits are planning this and they're moving their pieces with these riots. We see people shooting each other, and this is part of the plan to destabilize the United States, to bring in the mark of the beast. Civil war really is a possibility. But how many of us are spending hours and hours looking at these particular things that are taking place in our world, and we're so focused on what is happening around us, reading, researching, watching videos about how the coronavirus is a hoax, consuming content. How many of that is watching the wind? How many of that is really Satan's mirage? To get you so focused on the things that are happening all around us so that you take your eyes off of Jesus and you take your eyes off of Christ. You think that could be a possibility? There's whole ministries that are dedicated towards wind watching. That is, their focus on the winds of strife. Everything produced and put out is centered around the blowing winds around them, the current events. And let me take this current event and kind of fit it into how I see Bible prophecy and take that current event. It's very popular. Grab current headlines and put a Christian spin on it and interpret what's happening in our world. And the more boisterous the wind, the more focus and attention it seems to be placed on these things. And I've known people that are so wrapped up, they're so absorbed into the work of the Catholic Church and the work of the Jesuits, they start getting paranoid and they think Jesuits are following them. You ever met anybody like that? I have. You remember, it's when Peter took his eyes off Christ. When he saw the wind boisterous. And now more than ever, when the winds are blowing, so when the winds are blowing around us, these winds of strife, these events are taking place. We're not ignorant of them. But now more than ever, we need to be more determined to keep our eyes in the right direction. Isn't that right?